How's it going? I'm Michael and this is Budget Builds. My dad and I bring rusty, crusty old cars back to life. If you guys enjoy that kind of stuff, be sure to hit the subscribe button and notification bell. What is happening, Budget Builders, and welcome back to the channel. Once again, I want to thank you all so much for the positive love and support that we've had so far on this channel. Can't say it enough, we are having an awesome time. So we've got the 1800 out, sitting here in the middle of the garage, fixing to rain all week, and we want to get working on that Porsche suspension. So let's go ahead and get this motor torn down so we can get it out of the middle of the garage and get all the parts ordered so we can get it rebuilt. As you can see, this poor little car's a mess. But we're ready to get it going. Car show season's coming up. We want to be able to take all the cars out. The MG, this little car, the 66, and the Porsche. Oh, and let's not forget the little Rabbit pickup truck. Been doing a ton of work to it lately. Just about wrapped up with it and ready to post a video for you guys. Before we get going on this motor teardown, I just want to say, I know it's crazy right now. There's a lot of stuff going on, especially with the COVID-19. A lot of craziness and scariness out there. And I just want to say, be safe, stay healthy. Just want to let you all know, you guys and your families are in our thoughts and prayers. We hope everyone stays healthy and stays okay. Be careful out there. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Maybe take your mind off of things a little bit. So first thing we want to do with this, let's go ahead and get the transmission off. To start with, we'll pull the starter. And then we have 6 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 bolts that we got to take off and go ahead and drop that. As you can see, we're gonna have to do a little bit of seal work to the transmission. It has puked its guts up. So let's go ahead real quick, let's get that starter pulled off and let's pop this transmission out. Now this is surprisingly quite the starter. It's a pretty big old sucker, but let's go to get it popped off here. You've got 2 9/16 bolts. You'll need a little bit of an extension because the other one, the first one's here, the second one is back up on the inside here. And let's go ahead and get it popped off really quick. And there it is. Alright, now that the starter's off, let's go ahead and get the transmission bolts off. They are 1/2 inch and they have nuts on all of them, which is kind of a pain, but you have to back hold it. Let's go ahead and get this thing pulled off. Obviously our transmission is ready to come off. I do believe we are free hanging. There she is. I love a little bitty transmission. Right, now that the transmission is dropped, let's get our clutch and flywheel assembly off. First you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 9/16 bolts to pop this thing off. Just kidding, you have 6 1/2 inch bolts. To pop this pressure plate off, we are going to use the handy dandy impact for that. Obviously you're going to have a little bit of pressure as you come out, so let's be careful. I don't want to just go, I want to kind of go side to side with this so it doesn't come flying off at us. That is that. Honestly, that clutch is frozen to the pressure plate, but doesn't look terrible. I'd say a newer clutch when it was parked. Flywheel's not terrible. Looks fairly new, actually. Probably throw a little bit of a Blanchard ground on it, get it taken care of, and we'll be able to use that flywheel. Alright, so as you can see here, to get the flywheel off, we have to take these 6, I believe they're 13/16 bolts out of here, and it uses a lock ring, and what it is they put it in there, bolt it down. It's kind of a big washer, and then they fold it over. I think you can see there, and that holds these in place from backing out, just as a safety precaution. And so what we got to do is take our hammer and our chisel, flatten those out, grab our impact, and ring them off. We'll pop this flywheel off of here. Don't do it like this because I'm going to knock a tooth out. And just kidding, that's not a 13/16. It's actually a 3/4. Yes. All right. It's definitely not the lightest. Most of the time they won't just fall out of there because they have a pretty snug fitment up against the crankshaft, on the crankshaft. Yep. And that's that. And be careful, because the weight of that flywheel, torquing it back and forth, will squish a finger pretty good. Ask me how I know. Alright, let's go ahead and you have your rear crankshaft seal, and it's held in with this little keeper right here. And they have the flats just like the ring did for the flywheel. So let's lay those over. It looks like it is a 1/2 inch. We'll pull that off, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 9/16 bolts that hold this rear plate on, and this is the rear plate that kind of covers up. You'll see the oil pump and everything is up under here after we pull this, and this will give us access to go ahead and put the mount for our motor stand on. So let's go ahead and get all this popped off really quick and get our motor stand hooked up. Now I will say, it's been really enjoyable about filming stuff like this for me is, you know, most of this stuff's pretty straightforward, but if I forget anything, it's all on camera for me. Oh, I'm making a mess. Yeah, I probably should have drained the oil out of this already. Alright, well there's that rear plate off. And obviously there's access to your cam right there. And that is where we have oil running through. That's the only spot we have oil running through back here other than that main rear crank seal there. So everywhere else there's oil. I don't think there's supposed to be, but obviously it was leaking just a little bit. Let's go to wipe this up, get some bolts sized up so we can get our holder McDoobie job here put on so we can get this thing on the motor stand. Alright, so after hours and hours of digging, sadly we did not find any bolts long enough and the right thread that we can use for that. Dug through all of these. You know you got to have your extra nuts and bolts. And a lot of times it really does help out, but this time it didn't. So what I'm going to have to do is tomorrow run to the hardware store so we can get this thing on that motor stand. But for tonight, we have that impact. Let's go ahead and pull a few more things off of this motor before we call it a night so we can see about getting the pulley off so we can get that water pump off. And we have, it's a little 7/16. Let's go ahead and ring it off real quick. I have a feeling this thing is going to be absolutely stuck on here. But let's see what we can do. Not too bad. Obviously, not the happiest little pulley. Might need to replace it, or we'll see what we can do with it. Let's go ahead and ring that water pump off really quick. It is 4 half-inch bolts. I will say the nice thing about this impact is on your pretty rusty bolts, it'll actually shake it so much that even if it's rusty, it'll kind of clean the threads off and come out of there and not break it. Boop. There that is. Well, that is gross. Yummy. I was going to want to get all that cleaned out while we're in there. Looks like the Titanic in there. Yummy. Sadly, at this point, we're going to have to call it a night, but we're going to get those bolts so we can get this thing bolted back on, and we will catch you guys tomorrow. Okay, just kidding. Let's see if we can get this crank pulley off really quick, and maybe this front cover. So, got to go ahead and hammer the... It's got another one of these little holder washers that's folded over. And then this socket is not quite the right size. I'm going to say it's 1 1/8 inches, maybe. No, it's bigger than that. 1 3/16 maybe. Alright, thing just kind of came right off. There's that bolt. And let's see. I'm going to tap it really quick and see if he wants to move at all. And I'm barely tapping it, just enough to get it ringing while pulling it out. Thankfully, that one just came right on out. You do have 2 little spots you can get a puller in there, but this one came off nice and easy. Let's go ahead and pop that front cover off and see how our timing set looks. Whatever little cover you got that on. That was 7/16. Alright, so most of them, all but 1, 2, 3 are 7/16. The rest are 1/2 inch, and they actually hold this panel on, which I assume has the oil pump underneath it. I'm not positive on this one. It's a little bit different than the 1275. Let's get this cover off and see what we're working with. I really like to use this 5-in-1 painter's tool. Pretty thin, got a nice edge on there, and I use this for a lot of getting stuff like this off. Not too bad in there. Actually, surprisingly pretty clean. Other than a little dirty, no varnish or anything really bad. Almost looks like a little diesel in there. You can smell that Marvel Mistral we put in there. Alright, looks pretty good though. Alright, now, seriously though, I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm not going to jump into this until we get the head and everything pulled off. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. And we've got some bolts. Now these are 3/8 by 24, and I got 2.5 inch long bolts. Should be just right for engine stand. So let's go ahead and get that sucker over here, get it backed up to the rear of this engine, bolt it on so we can get this thing freestanding and get it torn apart. Going to get this head off and see what we're working with. Alright, now we've got this little thing on the engine stand, and really quick, let's go ahead and pop the valve cover off. Now we've already had it off one time in this series, so not going to bore you again with it. Let's go ahead and pop it off now. Yeah, I can't actually pop. Let's retry that. Okay. As we see, off, nice and grimy as we've seen before, but don't worry, when we're done with this, it's going to be nice and pretty. Alright, now that we've got that off, let's go ahead and start pulling all of our head bolts so we can get this head off of here and see what we're working with underneath. Really quick before we do that, let's go ahead and pull the thermostat housing, which is 3 half-inch bolts. Nuts, just kidding, and they're on studs. Forewarning, anyone messing with this, on both motors that I had, these were really stuck on here. I wish they would have used bolts, but you just kind of got to soak it down and tap around a little bit and get this popped off. Come off here. Not too shabby. Well, not too bad. Oh wow. It is obviously no thermostat. Not the way to run one of these. It is super crusty in there. See lots of little bits of rust and stuff, but no biggie. We'll get it all cleaned out. Alright, let's go and get this head pulled off. Alright, now that we got the stud bolts out, let's go ahead and take our rubber mallet and see if we can get this head popped off of here. Not too shabby. Y'all excited to see what is hiding? Alright, we got that head off, and as you can see, a little grimy, but not terrible. I'm not sure if you can tell or not, but there is a little bit of cross-hatching left, which is a pretty good sign. Means this thing's not completely worn out, but no big deal. Honestly, let's get the pistons out, see how they look, see what we're working with. May be able to just hone it, put new rings in it, and keep what we have going on here. Doesn't hurt. It's not a huge deal, doesn't hurt, but let's go ahead and get all the push rods out, and I'm going to make a piece of cardboard and we're going to mark them all in order just to be safe, so we know exactly what's what and what cylinder goes to which, just in case there's a little bit of tolerance issues as they've worn out. You know, each individual could possibly be a little bit different. So let's going to do that really quick, and then we can go ahead and start pulling off some accessories here. Accessories, there's not really any accessories here. We go to get some more stuff pulled off. Let's get that oil drained out of this thing and get this oil cooler off of here. We get this block bare so we can go ahead and flip it over and start getting all of everything else torn off of this thing. You just got a 9/16 bolt on each to pop these things right on off of here. Just kidding, you have a 1/2" bolt on each. And then you can pop these things right off of here. Nice and easy with your little breather thing going on there. Boop, there we go. Now that we've got this opened up, as you can see, one of those kind of came out. But I'm gonna take my little magnet, we're gonna stick it down in there, and let's pop each of these out individually. Honestly, really don't look too terrible. A little bit of scarring and scuffing, but not bad overall.
to see there's no kind of metallic or anything.
All right, let's let that sit there and drain for a little while. And while we do that, let's go ahead and get this oil cooler off. Got a couple big nuts. I'm just going to use a crescent wrench, and we'll get those suckers popped off of there. All right, now that we've got the oil cooler off, let's go ahead and pull our filter housing, which is just one big 3/4 bolt, and our distributor, which is two little 7/16 bolts. And we'll go ahead and pop those off, get this alternator bracket off here, and get this oil pressure sensor bracket off, which is two 1/2-inch bolts, and then the line hooks in right there. Let's go and get all that popped off. I have to give it a tappy tap. Off it goes. I was thinking this was a cartridge filter, but it's actually not. That is just a really stinking old filter. I mean, look at that thing. Good grief, that's been on there a long time. This gives you an idea of how long this car sat. And it ran. This thing ran after we pulled it out of the woods. And I have to say it's probably a lot to do with how crusty and nasty and oily this thing is that really preserved it as long as it did. I will say, nice thing about these distributors on these cars, obviously not gear driven, so there's only, you can only have it 180 out if you have it, you know. If this thing backfires and pops off when you try to crank it, hey, you just pop the distributor, flip it the other way, and there's no oil pump to drive. So by far easier than any American V8s. Quick and easy. This wrench fits it. All right, before we tip this thing over and pull the pan off, let's go ahead and finish pulling our timing set off here. So obviously this is held in just on a dowel, and your dampener on the front here. So what we're gonna have to do is go ahead and knock the little lock washer over, and then pull this nut off, and then you can pull this whole gear off at the same time. Really quick though, before that, let's go ahead and pull this tensioner off. It's two 7/16 bolts, and it does also have the fold over washers, but obviously this was replaced at some point in time and they did not hammer them over. So let's go ahead and knock that off really quick so we can go ahead with getting this nut off so we can get our timing gears off here. Take it off there. The motor doesn't roll away. Yep, right on off. I need to get a few extra larger nuts, if you know what I mean. So we can do this. I said nuts, what am I talking about? I have big nuts. I need big sockets for big nuts. Sorry. Alright, so what we're actually going to use here is a steering wheel puller. Look at that. Just applying an even amount of pressure. We don't really have to work hard. It's not tapered or anything, it's just splined. Alright. Now this is wanting to come off. Out of here. Boing! I don't know if that's how you're supposed to do it, but that's how it came. And it kind of just shot out of there. Obviously, this is something we'll be getting new anyways. Yeah, we'll be wanting to get new that. Here we go. There's your timing set. All right, let's go ahead and pull this plate off, which at this point has 3 1/2-inch bolts left. I can't wait to see this thing nice and clean and not collect all this grime again. And there's that front cover. So at this point, everything's pretty much stripped off of this thing. Let's go to flip it up. Pull the pan off. Start seeing about getting the crank pulled out. Alright, now we see the mess we're working with here. Let's go ahead and get our chisel, scrape some of this mud off of here, and then we'll pull all of these bolts off, which are 7/16. Obviously this pan looks pitiful. I'll try to find a replacement. If we can't, maybe we'll try to figure something out with this one. Maybe build a little skid guard or something underneath it. Beat it back out straight. Make sure it's nice and solid and leak free. This one looks like it might have tried to leak. Well, this thing was obviously leaking from everywhere. But let's go ahead and get this thing cleaned up a little bit and get this pan off of here. As you can see here, some of the edges are bent over, low car fun. I'm going to take the chisel and beat them back out so we can get access to that bolt and go ahead and get this pan dropped off. Fun, fun. Alright, as you can see, got the pan off. Overall, everything looks really pretty good in there. Not bad. I don't know if you can see down in there. The cam looks pretty good. It's not wiped down or anything. First things let's start with here. Let's go ahead and get this oil pump pulled off. It is camshaft driven. On this one, I will say the 1275s, the ones that I'm used to, are driven off the back side. Obviously, I do believe they're camshaft driven, but they're back here, a little bit different style. This is just the normal style oil pump. So let's go ahead and get that popped off really quick. We'll get our camshaft slid out. We can go ahead and pull our rod caps off, get them pulled apart, so we can go ahead and see about getting that crank out of there. All right, so you've got 3 1/2-inch bolts. I don't know if you can see, pretty worn out old oil pump, so definitely something we need to replace. Alright, so we do have to wait to pull the cam out because the lobes do hit the crank rods. So let's go ahead and start getting each individual piston and crank rod out. And so we'll take our caps loose. Be sure you keep each of these together with each one they go with, because these are cast in one piece and then cut or broken apart at the end. And so they're machined together. You want to be sure each individual one of these goes exactly with each piston. Alright, let's go and get this thing popped apart. Alright, now that we got the cranks and pistons out, let's go ahead. Alright, now that we got the pistons and rods out, let's go ahead and get this crank pulled out of here. Now you've got 3/4 nuts on all of them. I'm going to grab the impact. Let's pull them all off here. Important note on these, make sure you keep everything in order as well. Obviously, I did pry there a little bit, but nowhere near the crank or the bearing surface. And that bearing doesn't look terrible. You know, pretty worn out, but obviously we don't see any spun bearings or anything. Didn't hear any knocking. And everything appeared to have good oil pressure. So far looking really good. Let's continue to get these pulled off. Pop it out there. So you can see, your distributor actually rides on a gear right there, and there's your oil pump. And so we've got to figure out how to move some stuff so we can get this cam to come out past everything. Let me do some Googling, some looking, and see what we can come up with. There we are. Pretty good looking cam. By the way, really quick, I want to give a huge shout out to one of our subscribers, Paul, for sending us some goodies, including this flipping awesome flag here. He knows we love MGs and he sent this out to us, and I can't thank you enough, Paul. Alright, well that's going to wrap it up on the motor teardown. As you can see, a lot of work still here to do. Good bit of cleanup. Need to go ahead and start calling around to machine shops and stuff, seeing where we need to get going with this thing. Got a lot of parts to order. Tell me what you guys want to see with this thing. Give me some ideas. I'm thinking a cam, maybe board over a little bit. Kind of look around at some performance modifications that we can do to this little motor. Kind of wanted to do things a little bit different, kind of a step-by-step. I know there's a lot of motor build stuff going on out there. Tell me what you guys thought of this. If you enjoyed it, if you'd like to see this thing step-by-step put back together with all the new parts and get it fired back off in that little green car of ours. Once again, thank you all so much for the positive love and support that we've had so far on this channel. Hope you guys stay safe, stay healthy. We're thinking of you guys. Have a great evening. Peace out, and catch you on the flip side.